Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, let's talk about the frauds of free energy. I've been in this alternative science field for about 45 years now. Matter of fact, in the late 80s and early 90s, I sold massive amounts of what I called research reports with a small group of others delving into all these subject matter. There's quite a bit of information out there on different free energy sources. Everything from Tesla to Bedini to all these other people out there talking about free energy, 0 point energy, etc. And there's been many people involved in this. And they continue to be involved in this in their quasi manner of what they're doing. So a lot of this is very shocking. Now, so many things have come to my attention yet again in this new year, this interesting and tragic year of 2020. By listening to one of the greatest shows ever produced, the Bill Jenkins Open Mind radio show from the 80s and early 90s out of Los Angeles, California. What's interesting is that he never was nationalized and got on national radio, which is really a shame, because who did get on national radio and then made a fortune from it was Art Bell. Basically a sellout person who really didn't have any knowledge whatsoever. This ex-Navy, whatever the heck he was, radio man, was pushed to the top of this as a control person. There seems to have been, as it is alleged, that, and as research shows, that he was backed by a whole bunch of the traditional government spooks and control people. Bigelow, General Alexander, and that whole group of government-controlled disinformation CIA agents who are really just working for power structures. They don't give a damn about their country or anybody else. So, from what has been stated by Bill Jenkins, he turned down an opportunity to do that, apparently, and they offered him a fortune. Well, it appears that Bill Jenkins did quite well in his life from day one, and lived well, and apparently came from a decent family and made good money, even writing some television scripts and movie scripts, apparently, when you listen to his shows in-depthly. So he didn't actually need the money, and seemed to have been a person who had some credibility and really was into his subject matter. He researched stuff, he supported his people, he went out and fought for them, he had an attitude on the radio against skeptics and dumb bunkers. So the whole idea is that it seems like a real serious person. Unlike Art Bell, who wasn't really serious at all. He didn't support anybody. And again, there's all sorts of these spooky connections in his background that shows that he really was not a person who was what he pretended to be, which I'm not sure. But of course, he always said that this is just entertainment, people, nothing more. He didn't take any of it seriously. He raked in a fair amount of money and put on a bunch of entertainingly strange people, and when something came up and he tried to get excited about it, it came off very disingenuous. Goofballs at saying the earth is going to be destroyed, like Ed Dames, all sorts of quasi people, and since he really didn't know his subject matter, he couldn't really interview people properly. So we get back into that same old story there. So I published all this stuff, gathering information from many, many sources, putting them again into research files so people could know about this. And I was trying to get the word out there, saying, hey, all this interesting stuff is, don't believe all this stuff. That they're telling you that there is nothing. Like we always say, limited oil. Well, we know there's virtually unlimited oil in the earth, and there's finding new oil deposits all the time. So what does this say to all of us? And it goes into everything. We went through teleportation, time travel, all the fun stuff and interesting things that are out there. And what came of all that? Came of this is nothing. So the information is out there. When the internet came on, people were offering all kinds of garbage information for free, and eventually all of that operation slowed down and stopped because there wasn't any interest in getting this, thinking they could get that for free. Well, what happened is almost none of that is available online for free. So people just screwed themselves and didn't get anywhere. The industry, again, was easily controlled by anybody who went and talked to these people. Everyone's a coward. They will not get together. And, of course, this has been spurred to, as the usual thing, is that I got an email, who is still operating now, from Peter Lindemann. He's a famous alternative energy person now, been working on the fraudulent zero-point energy concept for many, many years. He also was working with the famous Bedini and many other people. Now, what's interesting is back in 1985, that's almost 30 years ago, they are talking about having working free energy devices, over unity devices that were putting out more energy than that was putting into it. Part of this also, who is still alive and active today, is James Bedini, who is apparently a secret government working for the military, and has put out a huge amount of videos showing machines in action, apparently working. And these are available online from Bedini. You can get a whole series of these for about $600. So there's a lot of information there where he shows actually working free energy devices. Now, what the problem is that all these other people, right up to the recent death of the Bedini brothers, who produced all these amazing things, as was talked about on the Bill Jenkins show 30 years ago, recently just died a year or so ago, if it's even been that long. Apparently, he was great friends with Lindemann, and they worked together, and Lindemann was so shocked, because apparently he died, John did, and his brother died a few weeks after that, which is kind of interesting. But what did they actually do? It's interesting. Of course, they do tend to kill people long term because it looks kind of suspicious if they don't. I mean, look what happened with Rodney King. They waited 15 years or so to murder him after that incident, and he drowned in a pool. Or technically was murdered. Or allegedly murdered by the police, of course, who murder and have gangs that they work with. So as all this gets together, you got these disinformation agents, which I allege Peter Lindemann is, who's been working on this zero-point fraud. He talks in his letter how they have so many hundreds of supporters willing to pay lots of money to anybody who can produce anything. It doesn't ever happen. I spoke to Peter Lindemann once in the late 80s, early 90s, and he seemed to me to be a very, here I was, a major force in the industry, had one of the only retail stores for radionics that there ever was, and of course there was no interest from him because he was apparently or allegedly controlled by the other side, who of course didn't want to support me. He also has a questionable sister who tried to steal some technology from me, claiming she's some sort of reporter. I mean, the bad apple don't fall from the bad tree when it goes to all these things. It's hard to say what is actually going on there, but I don't give Peter Lindemann, who keeps working on Zero Point and coming up with nothing. They all come up with nothing, and the more money they get, the less they seem to produce. First of all, let's talk about free energy in general. We have free energy. We've had it in terms of a fuel cell for over 100 years. We still have it today while we have fraudulent, contrived mental cases that are out there pushing battery cars, which require toxic metals and metals that have to be gained from oppressive methods of exploiting third world countries. Battery power is ancient. It's nothing new. The first cars ever manufactured were electric cars because there wasn't even gasoline back then. Oil was something that poured up from the ground and you tried to get rid of it. This then finally, somebody figured out how to use this as a very cheap resource, which it basically still is today, to power dirty, filthy internal combustion engines that are garbage and apparently can't be made clean. Haha. There's been zero emission cars for quite some time. Ford seems to be a company that does all that, and then of course they're ignored for it. including the real free energy cars. Free energy is here, people. It has been. The byproduct of it is pure water. Can we use more pure water? I think so. So what is it? We've got it, and then of course there was this, which came out about 5 or 10 years ago, this fraudulent thing about 0 point energy, that you buy this film, and we got to get this going, let everybody know about 0 point energy, the fantasy that doesn't work. And of course, the people who made that made a fortune. It's a big gimmick of disinformation led by the disinformation people, which are the free energy people. They claim they're suppressed, they claim they can't have this and that, and they can't get patents. Well, some of this is very true. And this has been going on for 30 years. They've come up with absolutely nothing. When I worked with a bunch of free energy people, the first thing they wanted to know is how are they going to protect their investment? How are they going to make money from this? Not the fact that, hey, look, the oil companies ain't going to like you. Let's just get this out there and make some changes. No, where's my money? Or should I call them Petroleum Junior? Because there's basically no difference there. So you've got to understand the environment you're working. If you've come with a breakthrough that's going to help mankind, well, maybe you should just get it out there, instead of looking about how much money you're going to get from it, considering very few of these people have put any money into it anyway. And if their discoveries work at all, there's a lot of fantasy people that want to make discoveries and think they have something when they don't. And this is a serious problem. They talk about all these things. Now, I've had some of Lindermann's technology, a scalar wave device that he made, and all of his stuff he makes for very high prices. They seem to be fairly well made in terms of the way they look. They tend to seem to be very simple devices, and I've gotten no results from his scalar wave item that was supposed to clear energy out. It's very hard to test these things anyway, and that's the problem with a lot of alternatives. How do you know if you're anti-radiation, or you're getting all these signals? How do you know if your environment has been cleared out by using one of these products? Well, you really don't. It's very hard to test these things. Yet they can be tested, and you can feel certain energies. You can test with pendulums. There are even meters, etc. All these things are part of the actual process that is going on here. So there are ways of doing it. But these people who have come out, and there's so many of them, that they have achieved nothing. Now, Lindermann's been around for years, and as he said, I allege he's one of the disinformation agents. He certainly was very unimpressive when I talked with him, didn't want to do anything to protect anybody, didn't want to get involved in an organization trying to work together. All of that was very much your typical disinformation. He worked with Brown from Borderland Research, who seemed to have been good buddies, but I don't know where Brown's coming from. He was not very impressive either when I talked with him. He had no interest in my organization, who spent money advertising in his magazine. I think I spoke with him once. He never followed up. He never did anything. He was another, if he was contacted to isolate, certainly was easily, and of course, a typical very cowardice situation, which seems to be very prevalent with these people. So, if you're going to have that kind of operation, you claim you're a big guy going against him. Well, I had another guy used to talk like that, and of course, the minute he came under strong pressure, of course, he knuckled under. Yeah, you're going to be tough out there. You're not going to be tough out there unless you have a support group that people can back each other up. Certainly Brown from Borderland Science, who apparently now lives in New Zealand, certainly was not one of those people. Now, was that a good? Yes, Borderland Science is a good, or was a good organization. It seems to be a bunch of God knows what now running that defunct place that offers nothing. A bunch of old publications that they don't even own. Then you have, of course, so that organization, which was one of those that were very popular in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a Tesla Society. The Tesla Society was very popular. They had meetings, etc. And again, this was in the middle to late 80s, early 90s. Apparently, they went bankrupt. I'm not really sure why. Some people said it was mismanagement. They made a lot of money. They started spending a lot. And of course, it doesn't take long because it's very hard to make money in these kind of organizations, especially from a publication. I was a member, and most people were members at that time of the Tesla organization. But it went nowhere, or it was sabotaged, etc. So all of these 0 point energy people are the same thing. There's people here and there claim to have things from anti-gravity, etc. And we know anti-gravity is real. The American military has anti-gravity planes, which I have seen 500 feet from me. So, and many thousands of other people have seen it as well. So it's not something that is particularly unknown. Time travel was another thing that was very big back then, and there was a bunch of weirdos and freaks in it. But hey, this is part of the fun idea of alternative science. But getting back to free energy, there was working free energy devices per Bill Jenkins, who had millions of people as followers from his radio show. And he had all these people on, and they produced absolutely nothing. It's really interesting to listen of those shows in the middle to late 80s where they said, well, in a few years we're going to have these working devices. All we need is a little bit of money. Well, that never happened. And it never seems to happen, and they're unable to build these things at certain levels to get them out there for one reason or another. Now, I'm not going to go into endless discussions on this of what it was. They did nothing. They didn't. There is a certain literature they have left, which seems to be conveniently sold by Lindemann, of all this stuff out there. Now, Lindemann claims to be working on a lot of stuff and never has come through with anything. He sells a few very expensive devices that he claims everything, all sorts of healing benefits and everything else from. I frankly doubt that. If it's as good as his scalar wave device that I owned, well, good luck to that. It'd certainly be fun to test these things. They're $600-700, not exactly a fortune, but on the other hand, I'm sure they cost probably less than $50 to make. And so he's making a nice little profit there off of the sick, the lame, and those who are interested. Now, how these people make money is interesting as well. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what industry he's in. It would be very interesting to find out what these people do. One way to check the sincerity of anybody is to find out what they are doing. People who tend to be unemployed or kind of self-employed in goofy little businesses tend to actually be in high suspicion. People who are connected to the medical industry through wives, husbands, etc., generally are all disinformation government agents. This is how it works. So I don't know what he's involved in or not, but he's got this newsletter again crying about his buddies that just died and stating his usual nonsense. But let's get back to real free energy. It's here, it's now, it could happen yesterday and has happened yesterday. It's called the most beautiful energy of all, and it comes from water. It's called hydrogen power, people. Hydrogen power is here, it is workable, and these frauds who are pushing 0 point energy when there's workable free energy now are just that. I allege every single one of them are disinformation agents. Now, if they've been gotten to or threatened, etc., well, who knows what happened to these or not. I have no idea what Bearden is doing, the government scientist and military person that he is. He's still pushing the information out there, but I guess nobody cares. They just marginalize you. Say all you want, man. You're never going to get it into production. And I'm sure this happened with so many other people. Magnetic motors and other things which are realities. There's all sorts of alternative motors out there as well. But free energy is here. It's called hydrogen. Hydrogen cars can be made tomorrow. But you're not going to find Elon Musk, the banking pushed up front disinformation agent who people think is so intelligent. First of all, he didn't make a dime. He didn't invent PayPal. He bought PayPal with his brother who was in the banking industry and who was married to a giant Illuminati guy from Texas. I mean, we all know who Elon Musk is. And now he's doing the ultimate insult by building a giant battery factory with the enemies of all of the world, the German, Russian, Islamic Federation. So this is a sad way to go to get into that. And typical of the Germans is once they copy everybody else's technology, they go and build factories and then put their slave labor. They learned how to do all that from their buddy Adolf. And of course, many years before that, as they've been involved in the massacre of Western society for literally many hundreds of years. So as we get involved with Lindemann, that ought to tell you something too, of the fact that he is perpetrating lies. 0 point energy isn't even close, will never happen, period. Hydrogen power has been. The hydrogen fuel cell was invented in 1890, I believe, and we have them working today. Hydrogen cars have been in production from every major car manufacturer in the world for over 25 years. Over 25 years we've had working hydrogen cars. Does that get you anywhere, people? We could have each one of that means that that's a generating plant. So everybody in their home could have a hydrogen generator, generating all their free energy. What's the beauty of all this? Oh, and don't get me into this stuff. You get to feel good. They've figured out how to make hydrogen just like pumping gasoline. That's another bogus thing. It is not explosive. Like gasoline isn't explosive? Isn't a gallon of gasoline equivalent to 4 sticks of dynamite?
Oh, no, man, we're going to watch that hydrogen.
That ignoramus statements that you are either living in an urban myth or one of those stupid skeptic or dumb bunkers that are the lowest form of goo-goo talk that's out there. So hydrogen, which there was a special on alternative energy, that was on television, I think, from the PBS, which was hosted by Alan Alda. Alan Alda went to Ford Motor Company, who showed working hydrogen cars. What's the beauty? You can convert any internal combustion engine to run on hydrogen for pennies. So we have working technology. We don't have to retool all of our factory, which costs literally trillions of dollars. It is safe. It can be put anywhere. If we want to pump it at gas stations, we could have hydrogen stations. We can have individual. You want to make some money off it because people have to have a tank with hydrogen in it that you go and fill up instead of making their own. Of course, you can make your own cheaply and everything. Does that sound like a problem to you? Well, Tesla found out what free energy got him. Got him blackballed, and that would never happen. Nobody's going to let people do that because energy is the number one thing that runs this world. If we don't have electrical power, we can do nothing. We can make nothing. We can't brush our teeth. We can't open a can. You name it, we need energy. So these frauds that go out there and talk about 0 point energy are the worst people on the planet. Why aren't they developing hydrogen to the level it should be? There are, by the way, let me talk about working hydrogen cars right now that are in massive use. One of the strange and unusual things about a very screwed up and really corrupt area of the world, otherwise known as the Coachella Valley or the Palm Springs area, is they had a kind of a fascinating bus service there. The bus service there was very interesting because it was all hydrogen fuel cell empowered. So the buses, which ran for many, many years and are still running to this day, are all based on hydrogen fuel cell technologies, and they've never had any problems. They work well. The buses run on time. Everything works perfectly there. And they are a proven technology, all working on hydrogen fuel cells. Interesting, from a part of the country where the most organized crime is, period, and has been for many years, but more gangs are in the Coachella, Palm Springs area than any place in the United States. They all moved there because the local unenforcements are so corrupt. So as we understand all that, these frauds that come out there that speak their 0 point energy and ignore hydrogen are an affront to us. We also know that there's plenty of other power out there, including wind power, solar power, etc., that is being used in the most unsunniest places of the world. It's interesting in a country like Germany that they are generating, they claim to, I doubt if it's that high, but claim that they're getting almost 50% of their power from solar. They have the same climate in terms of sunshine that Seattle does. Now, most people who don't live in Seattle, and they talk about, gee, it rains a lot in Seattle. Well, that's the first thing everybody thinks about Seattle. But that's the kind of, apparently it does rain almost every day in the morning. but it's not too bad after that. I'm not sure there's anything wrong with rain, personally, but the whole idea is that they have the same sun hours that Seattle does, yet they're able to do that. We have massive places in all over the United States, including every rooftop in the most populous state of the Union, California, that could be turned into a giant solar energy generator, which wouldn't even take up an inch of land because they're roofs that are worthless, and it's constantly sunny there. So what does that mean? So here we have all these things. I didn't want to address those.
Oh, we're gonna make anything out of nothing. I'm Peter.
So the whole idea is that this kind of stupid talk from these ignoramuses that are working against the populace out there for their own personal empowerments and getting their government paychecks, which I allege here. Of course, I never, it's not just this guy, it's all of these people in this entire industry who have been fraudulently misleading people. So all of these things, it's not just Peter Lindemann, who I allege and have no proof of any of this. But the whole idea is, what have these people done? They spent their entire life in these industries and done nothing. So has his buddy Brown from Borderlands. What have you done? And whoever the guy is taking over that organization right now that does absolutely nothing. They do nothing. They have nothing to offer. When we have a pure fuel source, we could build hydrogen generators tomorrow from car engines and power everybody's house anywhere in the world. People need generators to pump pure water, to run facilities to keep farming and housing going that is pure and runs properly. This is all being ignored because instead of getting on a successful, understood, proven technology, they get into Star Trek land, nonsense land, technology that will never happen ever. That's where they're at. Want to know what's wrong with the world? That's it. You need to educate yourself. I pointed this out to one alternative person. He said how important this rip-off free energy movie was, which I can't remember the name of right now. And I said, we already have this. And he didn't want to hear that there was a solution. He wanted to hear that it didn't work. We're living in Star Trek land. That's better, man. I don't want to solve no problems. This is the kind of idiocy perpetrated by a group of people that like this and everybody else involved in the alternative who have done nothing. They published information. A lot of the information they published is all gone. Borderland used to have all sorts of fascinating books and publications, all sorts of rate books for radionic people, other manuals. They print virtually nothing. They can't handle anything. Their business was apparently bankrupt and being ready to be thrown in the trash. But they didn't, of course, want to work with anybody who could assist them. They didn't do any of that. So all that information that they produced is lost. It's not anywhere on ebooks. It's not printed online. All stuff that can be done now very easy and for no money. Plain and simple. So the no money aspect of this is very important because everybody has got the excuse, we can't publish books and other things, and it does. And I spent an awful lot of money on copy machines and putting things together and having files and file space and everything else that went with that, which cost a fortune. That's right. That is no longer the case. All you've got to do is scan something into a PDF file. It's done. If you want to offer it for free or for a few dollars or for pennies, you can certainly do that. But it has to be done that way. It cannot be put out there and published individually. Kinda. Well, that's been solved with on-demand printing. On-demand printing done by Amazon is 100% free. So is Lulu. 100% free to offer that information to the public. All you have to do is scan the file, upload it, and you're done. No cost to you whatsoever. All you do is make money if it sells. What is the problem? So the excuses are all gone. trying to live in a fantasy world that you're going to have a 0-point energy device, which Bedini claimed he had, which never came to the public. And when it came down to a lot of things, it's like usual, there's a lot of questions. Was there something there? Well, probably. There also was magnetic motors that apparently seem to work by others. There's a whole bunch of different energy devices out there that were available back then that there are plans on, by the way. There are plans of how these things work. There was a device that was very popular in the 70s and late 80s called the M device that was supposed to be running a town in Switzerland. So all of this stuff has now disappeared. But we don't need all this fantasy, Star Trek, Next Generation, goofball, boobalicious technology. We don't need any of this. We have hydrogen fuel cells, a proven technology. It works. It works great. There's no dangers. It produces pure water. Unbelievable. That's what it spews. But no, we need trillion-dollar nuclear power plants, which are now leaking like the sieves they are, polluting the entire planet, will kill us all anyway. It's just a matter of time. You can't drink poison all your life and then say, gee, I don't know what happened. We have it now, and these people who are disingenuous, trying to push a technology that will never happen, have kind of turned over their own boat. When they claim they have thousands and thousands of people ready to buy products right now, when they become available, there are no products. Where are they? Where is your 0-point energy junk? Because that's what it is. It's junk. All it is misleading people away from the main road, down a trail into an endless pit of despair because they didn't stay on the proven road that works and has worked. If a lot of money was put into hydrogen power, we would have everything right now. And any problems that you want to come up with, you dumb bunkers and you stupid skeptics, for hydrogen power, well, I think several $1 trillion would easily take care of that, which is probably a couple of months' worth of oil revenues. So the whole idea is all that can be handled, and we have workable technology right now. And it's been known for over 100 years. You disinformation, do-nothing people who got into things for their own egos that ran borderland and are still involved in this areas, certainly have done this world a disservice. You have also not supplied important data that was out there to people that want it. The hundreds of classic books that Borderland had that no longer publish when you can. It goes on and on and on with this. And you have to really wonder, were these people ever serious? Well, I tend to think they weren't. I tend to think it's not they are still operating today. They are still doing different things, and they're not doing any of it properly. What is happening? Why weren't they able to do this? Well, I'll tell you one thing. They listened, of course, to all the other people. Instead of working with people like myself who had a good operation going that could have worked with them, they refused to do that. What they did was run away because the bad guys came to them and they got scared. The cowards that they are. So the whole idea is that this is the same old story, and while nothing will ever change in this reality, it will never ever change. There is never will be change. I hope everybody gets that. And living in the fantasy world that it will is absurd. Here it is, people. Think about it. We have free energy. It can be used with every car we have now in production. We can make generators. This can happen. Not now. It's already happened. There are generators. There are cars on the roads, and there has been hydrogen cars made by every single manufacturer in the world has a hydrogen car, and it's been working for over 10 years, probably 20 years. It was demonstrated on PBS on the Alan Alda Special Energy Show. Ford Motor Company showed the working machine. It's there. It's working. Let's start finding out what the real problem is, and the real problem is disinformation agents who lead you down a road to the abyss of nothingness. Until next time.